The Pathfinder's engines roared to life as Captain Chen slammed her hand on the emergency launch sequence. Energy weapons from the Council ships sliced through the moon's crust where her crew had stood moments before. "Status report," Chen commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers flew across the navigation console. "Shields at 60%. Main thrusters operational. Jump drive charging. But we need 3 minutes to reach minimum safe distance." 3 minutes they didn't have. The largest Council vessel was repositioning, its weapon ports glowing with building energy. "Evasive pattern Delta," Chen ordered. "Dr. Kapoor, tell me you managed to download those files." Kapoor hunched over his station, eyes wide behind cracked glasses. "Partial download complete, Captain. Approximately 68% of the database. But what I've seen already." His voice trailed off. "Save it for when we're not about to be atomized," Chen snapped. "Engineering, I need more power to the jump drive." Chief Engineer Riza Khalidi's voice crackled through the comm. "Captain, I'm rerouting power from life support on decks 3 through 5. We'll have breathable air for 20 minutes. After that, we'd better be far away from here." The Pathfinder shuddered as a glancing blow from a Council weapon struck their aft section. Warning alarms blared throughout the ship. "Damage report," Chen demanded. "Hull breach in cargo bay 2. Automatic seals engage." Rodriguez's normally calm demeanor was cracking. "Captain, they're not trying to destroy us. That shot could have cut us in half, but they aimed for a non-critical system." Chen's eyes narrowed. "They want the files back intact." On the view screen, the Council ships moved with impossible grace, taking positions to box in the Pathfinder. A communication request flashed on the command console. "Put it through," Chen ordered. "Audio only." High Arbiter Xorlax's voice filled the bridge, resonating in their minds rather than their ears. "Captain Chen, your resistance is unnecessary and inefficient. Return what you have taken, and we will allow your vessel safe passage home." Chen glanced at Kapoor, who shook his head vigorously while pointing to his datapad. On the screen, he'd pulled up one of the stolen files, images of Council ships hovering above ancient Egypt, medieval Europe, and Meiji-era Japan. "Your offer is noted, Arbiter," Chen replied, signaling Rodriguez to cut transmission after her statement. "But I think we'll decline." The jump drive indicator flashed from red to yellow. "Almost ready." "All hands, brace for emergency maneuvers," Chen announced shipwide. "Helm, on my mark. Cut all forward thrusters and divert power to aft. Let them think we're making a run for it, then flip us 180 when they commit to pursuit." Rodriguez nodded, understanding the desperate gambit. "Engineering, the moment we complete the turn, I need everything you've got in the main engines. A single burst, 2 seconds maximum. That'll fry the primary couplings," Khalidi warned. "Better than being fried ourselves," Chen replied. The Council flagship began moving to intercept their predicted escape vector. "Now," Chen ordered. The Pathfinder went dark for a heart-stopping moment, then spun with surprising agility for a ship its size. The pursuing Council vessels, committed to their interception course, couldn't adjust in time. "Jump drive ready," Rodriguez called out. "Get us home," Chen ordered as the engines flared brilliantly, pushing the Pathfinder through the gap in the Council formation. Space distorted around them as the jump drive engaged, tearing a hole in reality itself. The last thing Chen saw before the stars stretched into infinity was the impossible sight of High Arbiter Xorlax's energy form, seeming to reach out directly from his ship, tendrils of light stretching across the void. Then, mercifully, they were gone, carrying humanity's first warning of the storm to come. The emergency United Nations session entered its 14th hour. Secretary General Torres stood at the podium, dark circles under his eyes as holographic displays showed Council warships hovering over Beijing, New York, Lagos, and 24 other major cities worldwide. "The data Captain Chen recovered confirms our worst fears," Torres said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The Galactic Council has been monitoring and manipulating our development for centuries. They've prevented certain technological breakthroughs while guiding us toward others. The assembly erupted in angry shouts and desperate questions. Torres raised his hands for silence. More concerning is what Dr. Okafor's team discovered in the prediction models. The Council believes they can calculate the destiny of entire species with mathematical certainty, and their calculations regarding humanity have led them to a terrifying conclusion. He nodded to Dr. Maya Okafor, who stepped forward. A brilliant linguist who had mastered 7 Earth languages before turning 30, she now faced the challenge of deciphering an alien mindset. The Council operates on principles of absolute certainty, she explained, pulling up translation overlays from the stolen files. Their society has experienced no significant change for over 3,000 years. Their technology, governance, and culture exist in what they call perfect harmony. Okafor swiped through projections showing various possible futures for humanity. They've run simulations on thousands of possible development paths for our species. In 82% of scenarios where humans remain free to develop without Council oversight, we eventually surpass them technologically. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. What truly frightens them, Okafor continued, is that in many scenarios, humans develop technologies the Council cannot predict or understand. Our creativity, our tendency to make intuitive leaps rather than following logical progression. These qualities make us fundamentally unpredictable to a civilization built on mathematical certainty. Defense ministers from a dozen nations leaned forward, suddenly seeing strategic possibilities. Meanwhile, aboard the Council flagship in high Earth orbit, Sub-Arbiter Kelix faced the imposing presence of High Arbiter Korlax. The meeting chamber was designed to intimidate, a perfect sphere where sound traveled in precisely calculated patterns, ensuring Korlax's voice reached every corner with identical resonance. The humans have rejected integration, Korlax stated, his energy form pulsing with barely contained anger. Implementation of containment protocols will commence immediately. Kelix's amphibious features remained carefully composed despite his growing concern. High Arbiter, several Council members have expressed reservations about this course of action. The Trellix representatives have formally requested a full assembly vote before military engagement. The threat assessment calculations are absolute. Korlax responded, displays materializing around him showing human military installations in 82% of scenarios. With respect, Kelix interrupted, committing a breach of protocol that hadn't occurred in Council chambers for centuries. Predictions are not reality. Our mandate is preservation of galactic harmony, not preemptive elimination of potential threats. Korlax's energy form darkened ominously. Your concerns are noted, Sub-Arbiter. They will be addressed in due time. For now, containment protocols will proceed as scheduled. As Kelix departed, he noticed something unprecedented. A minute fluctuation in the chamber's perfect acoustics, a small but detectable sign that the High Arbiter's legendary control was slipping. Back on Earth, military commanders studied the Council ship's positioning. General Diana Hayes, head of Earth's Unified Defense Command, noted something peculiar in their deployment patterns. They're positioning for surgical strikes against our military infrastructure, she told the Security Council. Their formations are textbook perfect. Too perfect. There's no adaptation for terrain, no accounting for our potential responses. It's like they're following a script written millennia ago. Secretary General Torres absorbed this assessment, then made the most consequential decision of his career. He activated the Global Emergency Broadcast System, his face appearing on screens across the planet. People of Earth, the coming hours will test us as we have never been tested before. But remember this, what the Council fears is not our weapons, it is our unpredictability, our creativity, our fundamental humanity. In this dark hour, these qualities become our greatest strengths. As he spoke, the first Council strikes began. Colonel Jabari Williams moved silently through the cramped corridors of Tycho Base, the low lunar gravity making his steps light despite his exhaustion. 6 months of desperate resistance had taught him to function on minimal sleep. The base, designed as a scientific outpost before the war, now served as humanity's last military stronghold beyond Earth's atmosphere. He entered the strategy room, where his senior officers waited. The holographic display showed Earth surrounded by Council vessels, their formations perfect geometric patterns that seemed more like art than military strategy. "Status report," Williams ordered, his deep voice carrying authority honed through 2 decades of service. Major Helena Chen, no relation to the Pathfinder's captain, gestured to the display. "We've analyzed the patrol patterns from the last 3 Council fleet rotations. They maintain exact timing down to the microsecond. Their waste recycling system even vents at precisely the same moment during each orbit." Williams studied the patterns, a plan forming. Perfect consistency means perfect predictability. "Are the stealth shuttles ready?" "Yes, sir. Engineering has applied the reflective coating derived from captured Council hull material. It won't make us invisible to their sensors, but it should create enough interference to mask our energy signatures if we stay powered down." Williams nodded, then turned to Lieutenant Jackson. "What about the EMP devices?" "Completed testing this morning, Colonel. They're crude by Council standards, but effective. The pulse generator creates a cascading failure in their crystalline power distribution networks. We've miniaturized the design so each team can carry 3. "Duration of effect?" Williams asked. "Approximately 6 minutes before their redundant systems compensate. Not long, but long enough if we hit them where it matters." Williams finished. He called up captured schematics of a standard Council vessel. Unlike human ships with their redundant systems and compartmentalized design, Council ships were marvels of efficiency, where every component served multiple functions in perfect harmony. But this elegant design had a critical weakness: interconnection. Disable one key node, and entire sections became temporarily useless. "We'll deploy 6 teams," Williams explained, highlighting entry points on the schematic. "We'll time our approach to coincide with their waste vent procedure when their sensors recalibrate. Each team targets a different vessel class. Primary objectives are their communication nodes and navigational systems." Captain Ortiz, the youngest of his senior staff, looked skeptical. "Sir, with respect, this is a suicide mission. Even if we disable several ships, they have hundreds more." Williams' expression remained resolute. "This isn't about winning a conventional battle, Captain. It's about showing them something they haven't seen in 3 millennia. Adaptation. Innovation. The unpredictability they fear." 4 hours later, Williams led his team through the silent void toward the Council flagship. Their shuttle, powered down to minimal life support, drifted along a trajectory calculated to appear as nothing more than lunar debris. Inside, 6 soldiers checked their EMP devices with calm efficiency. Through the viewport, Williams observed the Council fleet. Up close, their vessels were breathtaking. Seamless structures that seemed grown rather than built, their surfaces shimmering with iridescent patterns. Beauty and death in perfect harmony. 2 minutes to intercept, the pilot whispered, though there was no need for silence in vacuum. Old habits died hard. Williams addressed his team one final time. "Remember, we're not just fighting for tactical advantage. We're fighting to show them something they've never seen before. Councils predict. Humans improvise." As if on cue, the massive Council vessels began their synchronized waste venting procedure, momentarily creating sensor blind spots throughout the fleet. "Now," Williams ordered. The shuttle's thrusters flared briefly, guiding them into the shadow of the flagship's vast hull. Magnetic grapples deployed, securing them against a maintenance access point identified in the stolen schematics. Williams sealed his helmet and checked his tactical display one last time. Across the fleet, 5 other teams were doing exactly the same thing. 6 small teams against the most powerful armada in galactic history. "Let's introduce a little chaos to their perfect order," Williams said, and gave the signal to breach. Captain Eliza Chen studied the tactical display aboard her flagship, the ESV Defiant, Once a civilian passenger vessel, the ship had been transformed into a warship through necessity and innovation. Its hull was a patchwork of Earth alloys and salvaged Council materials, ugly but surprisingly resilient. Incoming transmission from Mars, Captain, reported Communications Officer Park. Engineer Patel requests immediate conference. Chen nodded, and the main display switched to show Raj Patel's face. The engineer's normally immaculate appearance had given way to disheveled intensity, his lab on Mars visible behind him, with dozens of disassembled Council components spread across workbenches. "Captain, we've made a breakthrough," Patel said without preamble. "We've been approaching Council technology all wrong. We've been trying to understand it as machines, but it's more like music." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Their systems don't process information like ours do, sequentially, with clear inputs and outputs. They function through harmonic resonance." Patil lifted what appeared to be a crystalline shard. "Each component vibrates at specific frequencies that interact with others to perform calculations and actions." "How does this help us?" Chen asked. "Because harmony can be disrupted by dissonance," Patil replied, eyes bright with discovery. "We've modified captured weapons to emit counter frequencies. They're not as elegant or powerful as Council originals, but they create patterns the Council can't predict or defend against effectively." Chen leaned forward. "How soon can you equip my fleet?" "The first batch of modified weapons is already en route. But there's more." Patel gestured to a junior engineer who brought forward what appeared to be a standard Council communication device, modified with crude human components. "We've created a way to disrupt their communication networks. Not just jamming. We can introduce false data patterns." Chen's tactical mind immediately grasped the implications. "We can feed false information directly into their command network." "Exactly. Their systems automatically accept any data with the correct harmonic signature. They have no concept of deliberate misinformation. Their society hasn't practiced deception in millennia." On the other side of Mars, Dr. Maya Okafor led a different kind of breakthrough. Her xenolinguistic team had established communication with 3 captured Council engineers. Instead of traditional interrogation, Okafor had tried something unprecedented: cultural exchange. "We've been sharing human music, literature, and art with them," she explained during her daily briefing with Earth Command. "Their reactions have been fascinating. Our music physically pains them at first. They perceive our harmonies as chaotic. But after repeated exposure, something changes." She displayed brain scans of the Council captives. Their neurological patterns are adapting. They're developing the ability to process unpredictability. One of them asked to hear more back yesterday, said the mathematical patterns were sublime in their controlled chaos. General Hayes, commanding Earth's ground forces, looked skeptical. "That's academically interesting, Doctor, but how does it help us survive?" "Because it confirms our theory," Okafor replied. "The Council fears humanity not because we're inherently aggressive, but because we represent dangerous unpredictability. Their entire civilization functions on perfect predictive models. We're the first species they've encountered whose actions consistently defy their predictions." Hayes considered this. "So we intentionally become more unpredictable." "Exactly," Okafor nodded. "And we're developing the strategic communication protocol based on human literary references, idiomatic expressions, and cultural contextual cues. Elements that cannot be logically decoded without understanding human culture." As the briefing concluded, an alert sounded. Council forces had changed their attack pattern for the first time since the war began. They were adapting. "It's working," Okafor whispered. "They're becoming less predictable themselves." Hayes frowned. "Isn't that counterproductive? We're losing our advantage." "No," Okafor replied with a small smile. "We're gaining something much more valuable: the possibility of actual communication. They're starting to think more like us, and that means eventually they might understand us." Sub-Arbiter Kellick stood before the emergency assembly of Progressive Council members, his amphibious features reflecting the soft bioluminescence that lit the chamber. The meeting took place in a secured sector of Ta City, far from the Preserver strongholds and Torlax's influence. "The situation has become untenable," Kellic stated, his harmonious voice carrying perfectly through the chamber. "High Arbiter Korlax has exceeded his authority. The military campaign against humanity was never properly authorized under Section 7 of the Galactic Charter." Ambassador Safine of the Trellix rose, her crystalline form catching the light in prismatic patterns. "Worse than the procedural violation is the deception. Sorlax has systematically misrepresented human casualties to this council. My analysts have intercepted unfiltered data from the Earth conflict." The assembly murmured in the perfect harmony that passed for agitation among council species. Safine continued, "What was presented as precision pacification has resulted in the destruction of 17 major human population centers and the displacement of millions of their kind." On the holographic display, images appeared that had been kept from most council worlds: human refugee camps, children searching for parents, ancient cultural sites reduced to ash. For beings accustomed to perfect order, the scenes created visible distress. "There is more," Kellic said gravely. "My sources within the Preserver faction confirm that Sorlax has commissioned construction of a prohibited weapon, a planet killer. He intends to eliminate the human problem permanently." The chamber erupted in harmonious discord, the closest thing to shouting in council proceedings for 3 millennia. Meanwhile, on Earth, Secretary General Torres supervised operations at the Alpine Complex, humanity's most secure command center buried deep within the Swiss mountains. The facility hummed with activity as military and scientific personnel worked to process a critical development. The damaged council diplomatic vessel that had crashed in Australia had yielded an unexpected prize: Sub-Arbiter Kellic himself, injured but alive. After receiving medical treatment instead of interrogation, the high-ranking council official had made a decision unprecedented in council history: voluntary cooperation with a lesser species. "Your medical practitioners showed me compassion when protocol would have dictated my termination," Kellic explained to Torres through Dr. Okafer's translation interface. "This is not the behavior of a species destined to bring destruction." Torres studied the alien carefully. "What can you tell us about the Council's plans?" "The truth you must understand is that there is no single Council plan anymore," Kellic replied. "For the first time in 3,000 years, we face internal division. The Preservers believe humanity must be controlled or eliminated to maintain galactic stability. The Progressives, including Myrmandorians and several other species, see potential in your chaotic nature." Okafor leaned forward. "Potential for what?" "Renewal," Kellic said simply. "Council civilization has been in slow decline for centuries. Our perfect peace has led to cultural stagnation. Scientific advancement has plateaued. Birth rates across all species are falling. Several minor member species have stopped reproducing entirely." Torres processed this revelation. "You're saying the Council is dying?" "Not dying. Choosing extinction over change. Perfect stability becomes a beautiful form of death when extended indefinitely." Kellic's multifaceted eyes reflected the harsh facility lighting. "In our deepest archives, there are warnings from our ancestors about the danger of perfect harmony. Warnings we chose to forget." Colonel Williams, attending the meeting virtually from Lunar Command, cut in. "So some of you want to save us because we might save you." "Precisely," Kellic answered. "But time grows short. Sorlax has commissioned a weapon not used since the Great Harmonization, a planet killer. He intends to eliminate Earth rather than risk further contamination of Council order with human unpredictability." Torres and Williams exchanged grim looks. The stakes had just risen exponentially. "How long do we have?" Torres asked. "Production will require approximately 7 Council cycles, what you would call 14 Earth months," Kellic replied. "But there is another path. I am authorized to offer progressive Council support if humanity will join our coalition." Torres raised an eyebrow. You're proposing an alliance. I am proposing survival, Kellex corrected. For both our peoples. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the ESV Defiant, observing the gathering fleet. 2 years of desperate resistance had transformed human military capabilities. The ships assembled for Operation Breakout represented the pinnacle of human innovation combined with reverse-engineered council technology. Final status report, Chen ordered. Commander Rodriguez, promoted after her service aboard the Pathfinder, reviewed the tactical display. All vessels report ready, Captain. The 60-ship fleet is divided into 32 strike teams as planned. Mars Defense Force is providing rear security. The Progressive Council allies have transmitted the most recent patrol schedules for the Epsilon Eridani defense grid. Chen nodded, studying the mission parameters one final time. Epsilon Eridani housed one of the Council's primary supply depots, a critical link in their logistical chain. More importantly, it contained intact examples of advanced technology that Earth desperately needed to understand. Commence pre-jump procedures, Chen ordered. Remind all commanders, unpredictability is our primary tactical advantage. Once we arrive, each strike team follows their designated random pattern. No communications except emergency protocols. As engineers prepared the fleet's jump drives, hybrid systems combining human ingenuity with council precision, Chen addressed the assembled commanders via secure channel. What we do today isn't just about military advantage. We're demonstrating humanity's place in the galaxy. The Council feared us enough to break 3,000 years of peace. Today, we show them exactly why their fear was justified. Not because we're destructive, but because we're transformative. Light years away, Colonel Williams led a different mission. His smaller force of stealth vessels approached the Ta City system, home to several Progressive Council worlds. While Chen's offensive would capture attention and resources, Williams' mission was equally crucial, formalizing alliances with Council species who had broken from Sorlax's preservers. Dr. Okafor accompanied him, heading a diplomatic team with a radical approach. Instead of military might, they brought cultural exchange, human music, art, literature, cuisine, all freely shared with species who had created nothing new in centuries. Final approach to Ta City Prime, announced the pilot of Williams' command vessel. Progressive Council representatives await us at the coordinates provided by Sub-Arbiter Kellex. Williams turned to Okafor. Are you ready, Doctor? This is unprecedented territory. Okafor nodded, conviction in her eyes. Humanity has faced extinction events before, Colonel. Each time, what saved us wasn't just our technology or military strength. It was our adaptability, our diversity of thought, our capacity to embrace change. These are precisely the qualities the Progressive Council seeks. As Williams' fleet entered orbit around the crystalline world that served as the Trellix homeworld, they were greeted by a sight no human had witnessed before, a welcoming ceremony performed by council ships arranged in intricate patterns, emitting harmonious energy pulses that translated as music across the electromagnetic spectrum. They're adapting to us, Okafor whispered in wonder, incorporating unpredictability into their greeting rituals. Meanwhile, Chen's fleet arrived at Epsilon Eridani. The moment the human ships materialized, they split into their designated strike teams, each following randomized attack vectors that defied conventional military logic. Council defenders, following standard doctrine cultivated over millennia without actual combat, concentrated their forces around primary strategic points. They expected a unified assault against the main depot, a logical approach that any council commander would take. Instead, human vessels attacked from dozens of directions simultaneously, targeting seemingly random systems and infrastructure. Some struck communications arrays while others disabled power distribution nodes. Several teams focused on capturing intact council vessels rather than destroying them. In the first 15 minutes of battle, council commanders sent 17 requests for tactical guidance to their central command. Their perfect doctrine, designed for perfect opponents, crumbled against human unpredictability. From the Defiance bridge, Chen watched the council forces attempting to adapt, their formations shifting from perfect geometric patterns to more flexible configurations. "They're learning," she observed with grim satisfaction. But not fast enough. Raj Patel hadn't slept in 72 hours. The engineer's eyes burned as he made final adjustments to the Chaos engine. Humanity's last desperate hope against the approaching planet killer. His laboratory on Mars had become a fortress of sleepless innovation, littered with disassembled council technology and improvised human components. "The quantum fluctuation matrix is stable," reported his assistant, Dr. Sarah Chen. "But the interface with council systems remains problematic. Their crystalline architecture rejects chaotic inputs by design." Patel nodded, rubbing his bloodshot eyes. "That's why we're not trying to integrate with their systems. We're trying to transform them. The Chaos engine doesn't just introduce random elements. It creates cascade patterns that evolve unpredictably." He gestured to the device at the center of the lab, an ugly hybrid of Earth technology and council components. Where council designs featured perfect symmetry and elegant efficiency, the Chaos engine was deliberately asymmetrical, with redundant systems and seemingly irrational connections. Its very design embodied the principle it sought to introduce: creative disorder. "Our latest simulations give it a 37% chance of success," Dr. Chen said, her voice betraying exhaustion. "Better odds than Earth has otherwise," Patel replied grimly. A priority communication alert flashed on the main screen. Captain Eliza Chen's face appeared, her expression tense but composed despite the tremendous pressure. Behind her, the bridge of the Defiant showed signs of recent battle damage. "Engineer Patel, we've received the latest intelligence from our Progressive Council allies. Sorlax's armada will reach Earth in 18 hours. The planet killer weapon is fully operational." Patel straightened. "The Chaos engine is ready, Captain. As ready as it can be, anyway." "What are the deployment parameters?" Chen asked. "It requires direct connection to the command matrix of a major council vessel, ideally the flagship. It can't be remotely deployed. Once activated, it needs approximately 90 seconds to generate the quantum cascade." Patel hesitated. "Captain, whoever delivers this device won't be coming back." Chen's expression didn't change. "I was never planning to, Engineer. Have it ready for transfer when we rendezvous in 6 hours." After the transmission ended, Dr. Chen looked at Patel with alarm. "She's planning to deliver it herself." "The captain of Earth's fleet. Who else would she send?" Patel replied softly. Meanwhile, on the Preserver flagship, High Arbiter Korlax observed the massive armada assembled under his command. The largest military force gathered in 3 millennia filled the view screen surrounding his command sphere. At the center of the formation, the planet killer, a weapon not used since the Great Harmonization, pulsed with ominous energy. "Final preparations are complete," High Arbiter reported his second, "and energy being housed in a less ornate containment vessel. Targeting systems are calibrating for Earth's specific composition. Projected efficiency, 99.87%. Acceptable." Sorlax responded, his energy form pulsing with what might be interpreted as satisfaction. "The human contamination will be eliminated, and council harmony restored. There remains significant opposition among the progressive faction," his second reminded him. 17 species have formally condemned this action. Their perspective is irrelevant. The calculations are absolute. Sorlax's energy form darkened. "Though I must acknowledge a concerning anomaly. Recent human actions have deviated from all predicted patterns. Their offensive at Epsilon Eridani followed no recognizable strategic doctrine. They are inherently chaotic," offered his second. "No," Sorlax corrected. "Not merely chaotic, unpredictably innovative. Their randomness has patterns within the disorder." For the first time in his long existence, Sorlax experienced something approaching uncertainty. Increase vigilance during final approach. The humans will attempt something unexpected. Aboard the Defiant, Captain Chen briefed her small volunteer team. Only 6 crew members, each with specialized skills and nothing left to lose, would accompany her on what was effectively a suicide mission. "Our objective is simple," Chen explained, gesturing to the holographic display of Sorlax's flagship. "We infiltrate using a captured Council shuttle, make our way to the command nexus, and deploy the Chaos Engine. If we succeed, we save Earth. If we fail, humanity still has colonies on Mars and the outer moons with enough genetic diversity to rebuild." One of the volunteers, a young lieutenant who had lost her family in the Council's first strike on Earth, studied the schematics carefully. "How do we get past their security protocols?" Chen's smile held no humor. "We don't try to. We give them exactly what they expect from humans. Beautiful, destructive chaos." Ambassador Maya Okafor stood at the center of the Grand Concourse on Harmony Station, her formal diplomatic attire incorporating both human and Council aesthetic elements. 5 years after first contact, this massive habitat constructed in neutral space had become the symbol of a new era in galactic civilization. The circular chamber held representatives from Earth and 17 Council species. The proceedings marked the culmination of years of negotiation following the Battle of Earth and the transformation event that had forever altered the fabric of Council society. "The final provisions of the Galactic Cooperation Accord are before this assembly," announced the Trellix mediator, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that conveyed both gravity and hope. "Earth's ambassador will now present humanity's closing statement." Okafor stepped forward, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. In the observation gallery sat Secretary General Torres, Colonel Williams, and Engineer Patel, all veterans of a war that had nearly extinguished humanity before transforming the galaxy instead. "Distinguished representatives," Okafor began, her voice carrying perfectly through the chamber's acoustic design. 5 years ago, the Galactic Council broke 3 millennia of peace to wage war on humanity. Today, we gather not as conquerors or conquered, but as architects of a new equilibrium. She gestured to the holographic display, showing the various cooperative projects already underway. Revitalization of dying ecosystems on elder Council worlds, cultural exchange programs, technological innovations combining Council precision with human creativity. The accord before us acknowledges humanity's full sovereignty and right to explore the stars. It integrates human representatives at all levels of galactic governance. But more importantly, it embraces the principle that has emerged from our conflict: dynamic equilibrium. Several Council representatives shifted uncomfortably at the concept, still radical by their standards despite years of adaptation. "Perfect harmony leads to stagnation," Okafor continued. "Gentle discord creates growth. What your species once feared in humans, our unpredictability, our constant change, is precisely what this galaxy needs. Not chaos, but creative tension. Not conflict for destruction's sake, but challenge for growth." On the far side of the chamber, a small delegation of hardline preservers observed with visible disapproval. Though invited to participate, they had refused to sign the accord, maintaining isolated enclaves where they preserved their perfect, unchanging society. The transformation event that ended the war created ripples we are still understanding, Okafor acknowledged. When Captain Chen deployed the Chaos Engine aboard High Arbiter Sorlax's flagship, none of us could have predicted the outcome. The display showed simulations of what had occurred, quantum fluctuations cascading through Council networks, creating possibilities their technology had never been designed to process. Not destruction, but transformation, whole systems evolving beyond their original parameters. The mathematical certainty that underpinned Council civilization for millennia gave way to something more challenging and more vital: possibility. The question before us today is whether we continue this journey together. Okafor completed her address with a gesture that combined human and Council symbolic languages, both respect for tradition and invitation to progress. The chamber remained silent for a moment before erupting in a sound unprecedented in Council proceedings: spontaneous, unharmonized applause. The vote that followed passed with 70% approval, a percentage that would have been unthinkable before contact with humanity. Perfect consensus had given way to respectful majority governance. As the formal proceedings concluded, Okafor joined her human colleagues in the station's observation deck, gazing out at the spectacular stellar nursery that had been chosen as Harmony Station's location, new stars being born among the remains of the old. "Do you think we've really changed them?" Torres asked quietly. "Or have they changed us?" Okafor smiled, watching council and human children playing together in the station's central garden below. The youngest generation of both civilizations had never known a universe where the other didn't exist. "Both," she replied. "That's the point of equilibrium. We balance each other. Their order tempers our chaos. Our creativity disrupts their stagnation. Together, we're more than either could be alone." Engineer Patel approached, holding a data tablet with his latest research. "Ambassador, I found something you should see. The quantum patterns from the transformation event. They're still evolving."